I kind of sketched this as I was working on my interviews.
Whoa, really?
Because I think they describe the duality of these characters.
By the way, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. Has everybody seen these?
These are incredible. Did a beautiful job.
Thank you so much.
What an artist.
So beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're gonna.
Years ago, the name Arthur Fleck hit Gotham like a hurricane.
The trial of the century.
They believe Arthur Fleck to be some kind of martyr.
Hi.
These are incredible.
How are you, Joaquin?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Hi, Ted. How are you?
Hello, Fernanda.
It's great talking to you today because I wanted to tell you that I really enjoyed the way you took the reception and the general reactions of the previous film and used it as a storyline in this one to also create kind of a critique to its own audience. So how was it for you working with that storyline?
Well, it's one of the elements certainly in the movie, and I'm glad you recognize it, but it's not what the movie's ultimately about. But yes, as a director, you kind of use all tools and all things available to you with which to kind of paint the picture, and that was one of them.
I wanted to show you something because for me the movie was a lot about duality, and that duality is about your characters and of course Harley.
Did you do this?
Yeah.
Has everybody seen these?
I don't think so yet.
Do you want me to show them or is this private?
No, you're allowed to show them. So I wanted to ask you, how was it for you experiencing this duality between what Arthur thinks he is, like understanding whether he is the same person or if there's a Joker and an Arthur?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we probably all can identify with. I mean, I imagine that you sitting here right now and how you're talking to me in this interview is probably a little bit different than how you are with your mom, with your friends, right? And so I think in some ways it was an idea that we were attracted to, Todd and I, when we were making the first film. We started imagining, like, what happens after these events? What happens when you've created this character or been taken over by this character, whatever it may be? You find yourself the object of curiosity and adoration, and it's really just one part of you. And in some ways we kind of started from there, examining like, what would that be like? And really, I was thinking about like a band like Kiss, you know the band Kiss? And these guys that like, I don't know, I just thought it was funny because I imagine that you're like sitting with your friends and you're like putting on this makeup and you're thinking, this is really funny, like what are we doing? And then we play some songs and then you become really popular. And then you got to maintain this. And at some point you're in your 40s and you're like, what am I doing? I'm putting on this fucking makeup and I'm walking around. What am I doing? That to me was funny. And so I think that was kind of like the first, inspiration, at least for me in some of the conversations I talked about with Todd.
These are incredible.
Did you
draw
so
these?
Much. Yeah, I did.
Like, you did a beautiful job.
Thank you
what
so
an
much.
Artist.
Thank you. And I gave you those because after I saw Joker, I thought the biggest theme in this movie was the duality of identity. And I think specifically Harley struggles a lot with the idea of who she wants to be and who she really is. So I wanted to ask you, how was it for you working with all of these faces that your character has?
I mean, that's a really good question. I would say that it gave me a lot of freedom to express all of the things that she is not and what she dreams for herself to be. And I think that, that like really spoke to me on an emotional level, what it feels like to like kind of endlessly be putting on like mask after face in your life to find yourself.
The other thing that I really enjoyed about this film is the questions about identity and the duality that not only the characters have, but the movie itself. I think on one side it still is the dark Gotham we all know, but it also has these musical elements.
Yeah.
So what was the particular direction when creating these two worlds to make them separately amazing, but also have them be cohesive?
Yeah, I mean, these are great questions, by the way, and very like astute what you recognize. It was just, again, it's one of the more fun parts of making a movie is sort of building the world of the movie, right? And it's something, I work closely with the Larry, the DP, and Mark, the production designer. But really it was the exciting part was that ability to go into Arthur's imagination, right? And to see that there's still this fire, this light inside of Arthur, and he just needed to sort of be seen by somebody like Lee for that light to reemerge. And yeah, but that's kind of the fun part of making movies, right? Is creating those worlds.
This movie also talks about this idealization that we have of people, that we look at them as characters instead of complex persons. Have you ever been in that position where you've wanted to say, I am way more than what you see on stage, or way more than what you see on screen?
You know, I think in a way, sometimes I have definitely felt that way. You know, how could I use acting or music as a way to express a desire to be seen? In what ways also did what I wore on stage, or not on stage, just in life, you know, sort of blur the lines of reality and entertainment? I think like those themes are actually really at play in this movie, and also that's kind of a chaotic life, you know, in a way, or I should say it's like just a chaotic relationship with identity, and I think that's a huge part of this movie as well, and sort of the danger of the love story between the two of them. You know, there's the love they have for each other, and then there's their relationship with themselves, and that creates this like hurricane.
Now that you mentioned that vision and adding that layer to the character, I think in the previous film we had a very complex character, and this time it has even more layers. So what was the direction to Joaquin Phoenix to understand where the character is now?
I mean, I didn't have to give Joaquin much direction about that, because Arthur is as much my creation as it is his. Meaning, we could sort of talk in a shorthand of where Arthur would be now in the film. You know, one of the more interesting things is where I thought you were going is, you know, how did you and Joaquin even decide to do a sequel, which so much of it is because when you make a movie, you're so often trying, at the end of it, you're ready for the movie to end. You know what I mean? Like, you're literally like marking days off on the calendar, like, because it's long shoots. On the first Joker, we didn't want it to end. Joaquin and I really wanted to spend more time with Arthur. We just kind of loved him, and we thought there was more to explore. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, it was just we wanted to stick around and do more with Arthur.
I believe the reason why the fans fell in love with Joker in the first film was because they wanted to understand his mind. And this time we tried to understand his mind through musicals. How do you think the musicals help us to see what his psyche is like?
Yeah, I mean, Todd always said that the songs are just basically dialogue. This is just, it's kind of a character's innermost thoughts or feelings. And there comes a point where I guess just a traditional way of speaking wouldn't satisfy the immense emotions that the characters are feeling, and at some point they have no choice but to break out into song. And really, for Arthur, it's the promise or the hope of love, and he really, that's what kind of instigates the singing, because prior to that, he's like not even talking. I mean, in this state when we first meet him, where he just feels like he's given up and it feels hopeless. And then when he meets Lee, you see that he comes alive and a little bit of color enters his world.
I think one of the things that will excite fans the most is that we get to see Arkham from the inside. And it's also landed in a very grounded way, the same way Arthur is.
Arthur and yeah.
So why do you think this time these characters, even though they started being kind of a cartoon in the comics, they feel so real and so close to us now?
In some ways, we all grew up on this stuff, and we've all grown up on so many iterations of it. And I think, you know, while I love Joaquin playing Joker, I'm excited to see the next people who take a shot at it. Like, it's just, not to sound horrible, but in some ways it's like Shakespeare. There will be 500 versions of Romeo and Juliet, and each one is like, oh my god, Baz Luhrmann did Romeo and Juliet, what's that like? Oh, it's amazing. Not comparing comic books to Shakespeare, but in some ways it's so ingrained in us that it's become part of being alive, right? We just have these visions, these perceptions of who they are. I don't know, it's fun.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for that experience.
Thank you, that's cool.
Thank you.
All right.
I really enjoyed the musical part of it. So thank you so much for talking to me. It's been great meeting you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for talking to me. It was great meeting you.
Thank you. You too.